Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my reading journey. Hope you're all doing great, and today we continue with the eighth part of Roads of Destiny. Thank you for joining me today, and we are continue. David's stock of poems grew larger and his flock smaller. Flock. Yon's nose and temper waxed, sharp waxed, and her talk blunt. Her plants and kettles grew dull, but her eyes had caught their flash. She pointed out to the poet that his neglect was reducing the flock and bringing woe upon the household. David hired a boy to guard the sheep, locked himself in a little room in the top of the cottage, and wrote more poems. The boy, being a poet by nature, but not furnished with an outlet in the way of writing, spent his time in slumber. The wolves lost no time in discovering that poetry and sleep are practically the same. So the flock steadily grew smaller. Yon's ill temper increased at an equal rate. Sometimes she would stand in the yard and rail at David's through his high window. Then you could hear her as far as the double chestnut, three above Pierre Grunet's forge. M. Papina, the kind, wise, maddling old notary, saw this, as he saw everything at which his nose pointed. He went to David, fortified himself with a great pinch of sniff, and said, "Friend Mignot, and I affixed the seal upon the marriage certificate of your father. It would distress me to be obliged to attest a paper signifying the bankruptcy of his son. But that is what you are coming to. I speak as an old friend. Now listen to what I have to say. You have your heart set, I perceive, upon poetry. At drugs, I have a friend, one Monsieur Brill, George Brill. He lives in a little cleared space in a household of books. He is a learned man. He visits Paris each year. He himself has written books. He will tell you when the catacombs were made, how they found out the names of the stars, and why the plover has a long bill. The meaning and the form of poetry is to him as intelligent as the bow of a ship is to you. I'll give you a letter to him, and you shall take him your poems and let him read them. Then you will know if you shall write more or give your attention to your wife and business." "Write the letter," said David. "I'm sorry you did not speak of this sooner." At sunrise next morning he was on the road to Drugs with the precious roll of poems under his arm. At noon he wiped the dust from his feet at the door of Monsieur Brill. That learned man broke the seal of M. Popinus's letter and sucked up its contents through his gleaming spectacles. As the sun drops water, he took David inside to his study and sat him down upon a little island beat upon by a sea of books. Sea of books. Monsieur Brill had a conscience. He flinched not even at a mass of manuscript, the thickness of a finger length, and rolled to an incorrigible curve. He broke the black of the roll against his knee and began to read. He slided nothing. He bored into the lump, L-U-M-P, as a worm into a nut, seeking for a kernel. Meanwhile, David sat, marooned, trembling in the spray of so much literature. It roared in his ears. He held no chart or compass for voyaging in that sea. Half the world, he thought, must be reading books. Monsieur Brill, Monsieur Brill, bored to the last page of the poems. Then he took off his spectacles and wiped them with his handkerchief. My old friend Popinus is well, he asked. In the best of health, said David. How many sheep have you, Monsieur Mignot? 309, when I counted them yesterday. The flock has had ill fortune. To that number it has decreased from 850. You have a wife and a home, and lived in comfort. The sheep brought you plenty. You went into the fields with them and lived in the keen air, and ate the sweet bread of contentment. You had but to be vigilant, and recline there upon nature's breast, listening to whistle of the blackbirds in the grove. Am I right thus far? It was so, said David. I have read all your verses, continued Monsieur Brill, his eyes wandering about the sea of books as if he counted the horizon for sail. Look yonder through the window, Monsieur Mignot. Tell me what you see in that tree. I see a crow, said David, looking. There's a bird, said Monsieur Brill, that shall assist me where I am disposed to shirk a duty. You know that bird, Monsieur Mignot. He is the philosopher of the air. He is happy through submission to his lot. None so merry of full crowed as he with his hemical starts with W, and rollicking step. The fields yelled him what he desires. He never grieves that his plumage. Plumage is not gay, like the oriole, ori, orioles. And you have heard, Monsieur Mignet, the notes that nature has given him. Is the nightingale any happier, do you think? David rose to his feet. The crow caved harshly from his tree. I thank you, Monsieur Brill, he said slowly. There was not then one nightingale note among all those croaks. I could not have missed it, said Monsieur Brill with a sigh. I read every word. Life, your poetry, man. Don't you try to write it any more. I thank you, said David again, and now I will be going back to my ship. If you would dine with me, said the old man of books, I overlook the smart of Ed. I will give you reasons at length. No, said the poet, I must be back in the fields, cawing at my ship. Back along the road to Verneuil, he trudged with his poems under his arm. When he reached his village, he turned into the shop of one Ziegler, a Jew out of Armenia, who sold anything that came to his hand. Friend, said David, wolves from the forest harass my sheep on the hills. I must purchase firearms to protect them. What have you? A bad day. This for me, said Mignard. Sorry, a bad day. This for me, friend Mignard, said Ziegler, spreading his hands. For I perceive that I must sell you a weapon that will not fetch a tenth of its value. On the last week, I bought from a peddler a wagon full of goods that he procured at a sale by a commissioner of the crown. The sale was on the château and belongings of a great lord. I know not his title, who has been banished for conspiracy against the king. There are some choice firearms in the lot. These pistols, a weapon fit for a prince. It shall be only 40 francs for you, friend Mignet, if I lose 10 by this sale. But perhaps an arquebus. This will do, said David, throwing the money on the counter. Is it charged? I will charge it, said Zelder. And for 10 francs more, add a store of a powder and ball. David laid his pistol under his coat and walked to the cottage. Jon was not there. Of late, she had taken to getting much among the neighbors, but a fire was glowing in the kitchen stove. David opened the door of it and thrust his poems in upon the coals, and they blazed up. They made a sighing, harsh sound in the flew. The song of the crow, said the poet. Crow. He went up to his attic room and closed the door. So quiet was the village that a score of people heard the roar of a great pistol. They flocked thither, and up the stairs where the smoke issuing drew their notice. The man laid the body of the poet upon his bed, awkwardly arranging it to conceal the torn plumage of the poor black crow. The women chattered in the luxury of zealous pity. Some of them ran to tell Jon. M. Papineau, whose nose had brought him there among the first, picked up the weapon and ran his eye over its silver mountings with a mangled air of connoisseurship and grief. The arms, he explained, aside to the cur and crest of Monsieur, the Marquis de Beaupertus. That's sad, that's sad. Alright, guys. This long story is over, and we're gonna continue with the next one. I hope it will be shorter, but not sure. So, see you tomorrow on the next video. Thank you for joining. Bye.